It's good to be here. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Are you happy?
Yes.
You don't look that much, but I'll take that. Well, yes, when I served as the president of Adventist World Radio, every year I would bring some goodies, but this year, they kicked me out, and with that, all the goodies went. I retired on January 31st this year. Thank you. I announced my retirement October 3, so it was early on. I told the board when we met in the fall that would be my last board. Took some by surprise. My staff didn't even know that. That's the way I like it to be. I don't fool around too much. I just come down. Well, after 51 years, I think it's enough. And but the board took a while to get my replacement. So on January 18 this year, 3 months plus after I announced my retirement, they appointed Elder Dwayne McKee, former Sabbath School and Personal Ministries Director of General Conference, to be the president. Dwayne is now the president. So all the goodies I used to have from the office, I'm now a retiree, and you know what that means. Broke. But happy. So I thought about asking the office to give us some, whatever it used to give us to bring. But I didn't have the time probably. Maybe I did, but I didn't take the time. But next time, if I do come back, I'll make sure that I get some stuff from the office. When I say the office, I mean Adventist World Radio office. But I'm glad to be here. How many are in the room? I can't count too well. But it's probably about 50, some 60 people?
75 people.
75 people. Great group. Excellent group. A little too big, but that's okay. It's good. It's good. Now, just to get acquainted, I learned that Elder Ta comes from Myanmar, and some of you from the churches here in the city or in the metro area. Where else do we have people coming from? Out-of-state people. Anyone from out-of-state in New York? Who are you?
Danielle Campbell from Decatur Seventh-day Adventist Church in
Atlanta, Georgia. Where else? Who else? Yes, yes.
From Freddie Jenkins from Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, where else? Way in the back. Elton Souza, Chicago. Over here. Boston, over here. I saw a hand up here somewhere. Yes, yes. You.
Nicole Graham from Florida, Maranatha Assembly.
Okay. Where else? That's it? Oh, yeah, over there. Providence, Rhode Island. Okay, so who else is here? From far and near. The rest of somebody else? Whom? You already said. Okay. So this is the extent of our attendance. That's wonderful. So the majority of you are from the New York metro area, aren't you? Which is understandable. That's where the meetings are being held. So it's good to know that we have quite a diverse group. How many language groups do we have here? Churches other than English-speaking churches. Do we have anyone from churches other than English? Away in the back. Spanish. Over here, brother. Yeah. French? Brazilian? Yes? Of course. Yes. Karen. Burmese? Myanmar? Both of you? Both of you, Karen. Chin. Chin Kachin. Po Karen. Those are languages from your country, beautiful languages. We do, just so you know, from Myanmar. Is it Pastor Timothy, your president now?
Yeah.
I was with him just a few months ago in inaugurating the studio in Piolin. City of Piolin is a beautiful city outside of Mandalay, Myanmar. Piolin is a beautiful city in the hills. It's it's a garden. The weather is, I would retire there. I could retire in Piolin. It's just a beautiful place of the world. So we do 3-4 languages in Yangon, and we're doing 3 or more we'll start at 3 in Piolin, Chin Kachin, and even Hmong, and we want to do Lisu. So those are languages I was privileged to develop with the brethren in Myanmar. So we preach the gospel in your country, and now it's about 6 or 7 languages, including Burmese, of course. Chin, Kachin, Karen, Po Karen, Sga Karen. Those languages we already produce, and we're adding more and more as much as we can. Beautiful, beautiful country. And of course, the Spanish world. What church do you come from, brother, way in the back?
Spanish Woodside.
Spanish Woodside. This is your territory, then, right here, huh? Right here. Mm-hmm. And the brother who speaks Portuguese from where?
Luso Brazilian Church in New York.
Here?
Yes.
In New York.
Spanish Manhattan.
Spanish Manhattan behind there too. Oh, okay. Anybody else besides those?
Misericordia in the Bronx.
Spanish Misericordia in the Bronx. Okay.
Porchester, New York.
Huh?
Porchester, New York.
Spanish.
Are you from the Spanish church too?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. You're the one that spoke, right?
yeah, from Porchester.
Okay, so we have a very diverse group here. And of course, the rest of you from English-speaking churches. Yes. Well, it's good to get to know you a little bit. And as we share some time together, as Song said, if I would just bring you a topic on accounting, that would be the driest thing in the world. And you would be snoozing in no time. But, so it's not helpful to do that. I'm glad I have the morning session this time, because sometimes they put me after lunch, and you know what? That's the worst time of the day. And to come down with accounting after lunch is not a good idea. So today I think you're fresh, your mind is fresh, and we will get into some concepts that I hope will be helpful to you. Okay? It's not going to be all dry accounting. Accounting does not exist on its own. And especially when you're talking about the church accounting, it's tied to mission. You cannot separate those. Once you do that, it becomes irrelevant for Christians. So you got to put together both. So, and I gather that many of your churches here in New York, besides these languages, you have other languages as well. They may not be represented here. Do you have Korean churches here in New York?
Yes.
You do. You do, okay. And I'm sure the other nationalities, New York City is the melting pot. You all know that. I was looking at some stats, or heard it somewhere. There are over 100 languages spoken in this city alone, right here. People from all these countries. This morning, I was at the hotel taking my little breakfast, and there were 2 ladies speaking Afrikaans. Where do you speak Afrikaans? South Africa. Very, very guttural sound. It comes from the Dutch. And if you ever go to South Africa, it's interesting, it's fascinating to listen to the Afrikaans, of course, is the national language, and English. But you have Zulu, you have other languages you speak down there as well. But it was interesting to hear 2 ladies in the hotel speaking in their mother tongue, and of course you have other languages. I hear all different these sounds, and some of them I recognize. Well, let's get down to business so we can get some ideas. I want this to be interactive, so I want you to feel relaxed and ask questions. I may not have the answers. Normally I don't have all the answers, but it's not a bad idea to ask the questions anyway. because by asking questions, you get across ideas. And the whole idea, so here, I think I heard something very interesting this morning. The few of you who spoke, and I think the bottom line of these seminars is that you go away from here with ideas. We come with our preconceived ideas of what we like to do, what we want to achieve, but we go away with a richness of resources. And you mentioned something that I would encourage you to do. Just a few months ago, I was in Peru. That was my last symposium. When I was at AWR, I did a symposium every 3, 4, 5 years for the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries. Well, let's say the Americas. In Adventist World Radio, we have the word divided into regions for our organizational purposes. So the Americas is the United States and all the Americas going south, from pole to pole. Okay? But then we have the Africa region, which includes all Africa and Madagascar. Then we have the Europe region, which includes Europe, obviously. And the church has 13 divisions in the world. So we take 3 divisions in this part, North American, Inter-American, and South American division. Those divisions comprise the Americas region for us, okay? So I deal with that. I dealt with that all the years I was there, and Dwayne McKee, the new president, has asked me to continue working with the work of the Adventist World Radio work in the Americas. So I still represent the Americas with AWR. Then you have the Africa region, as I mentioned. We have 3 large divisions in Africa as a church. We have the East Central Africa Division, the West Central Africa Division, and the South Africa, Indian Ocean Division in Africa. That's a huge continent. Then we have the European regions, as I mentioned. We have 3 divisions in that region as well. We have the Inter-European Division, the old EUD, let's still call it EUD. Then we have the Trans-European Division, and with the Eastern Asia, the Eurasia Division, the one in Russia, in that area. So that territory is huge, even though the membership of the church is lesser. We can talk about it a little bit later. Then we have the Asia Pacific region, Elder Todd. That's a big region. That has 3 divisions, actually 4. The North Asia Pacific Division in Korea. And we have the Southern Asia Pacific Division in the Philippines. We have the Southern Asia Division in India. These are headquarters. And then you have the other one down south, what you call it, South Pacific Division in Australia. With that, the entire world is included. And so we have that region, Europe region 2, Africa 3, and the Americas 4. We have 4 regions that covers the entire world. So in Peru, we had this symposium. I'm coming back to the thought that brought me here. We had like 60 or 70 persons in radio throughout the Americas coming down to that meeting. We call it symposium. We did have, for the first time, one from Portugal that came over. I was in Lisbon and working with them, but they have a small radio station in the city of Sintra, Portugal, outside of Lisbon. And I encouraged the brethren to send someone to the symposium. I was there just prior to the symposium. And they struggled, but the elder came, the communications director did come. So we had that one person from Europe who came to the symposium in Peru. The outcome of that symposium, with today's technology, we're going to talk about that a little later on, has produced something very good that you mentioned this morning. And I would encourage you to follow up on that. Once you come to these kinds of meetings, you get to know people that you didn't know before. Is that true? You learn something from Luis, you learn something from over here. Oh, you're doing that. I'm doing this. You do this, I do that. So begin to share. When I say they, the leader down in Brazil, who's my very good friend, Jorge Ramponia, You may not know Jorge. Jorge is from Argentina, but he works in our communication center in Jacareí, outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Jorge and his team did a great job in Lima, Peru to help me put this symposium together. They created a WhatsApp group. You know what WhatsApp is?
Yes.
Everybody knows what WhatsApp is. I didn't know a thing about WhatsApp. I know soursop. But WhatsApp, what is WhatsApp? And they keep telling me, Pastor, you need to get on WhatsApp. I said, what is WhatsApp? Well, it's it's what's up. So it becomes WhatsApp. What they did, and it's on my phone. I can't get rid of it because, good grief. I'm part of it. They created a group, a conversational group. Since that symposium, I want to tell you that's one of the best things that has happened out of that symposium. The guy from Portugal, he speaks Portuguese, of course. He speaks a little Spanish. Pastor Duarte. He is so thrilled because now he has a number of people in the Americas. And from Brazil, of course, they speak Portuguese. But he understands a little Spanish, and I write to him in Spanish, and he writes to me back in Portuguese. So that's how we communicate. And that's fine. But the point is, these people are so active. I am just flabbergasted to see what's going on here. The guy from Costa Rica, the president of the mission in Costa Rica, the director of the station in Santo Domingo, you see, the people from Chile, the folks from Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, from Mexico, you name the country. They're sharing constantly ideas. We have this series we produce in Ecuador on prophecy. Would you like to have that series for Costa Rica? Yes, we would. They're sharing resources now. So I want you to go back from this meeting here. Make sure you get on this WhatsApp thing or something like that. And share ideas and continue to share information. I am not on Facebook either, so I need to confess, I'm not a Facebook person. I'm not a social media person for security reasons. I've never been on it and probably will never be on it for security reasons. Maybe now that I'm retired, I'm a little more free. But when I work for AWR, we work in places where you just cannot do things like that stupidly. We don't share photographs or pictures. Not all of them. There was a time in Myanmar, Brother Ted, where we would not share pictures from Yangon. No, we are a little more open in Myanmar. It's a little easier to manage, but still from China, I'd go to China and they say, Pastor, you can take pictures, but never publish them. And I have pictures that I will never publish until I get permission from the people on those pictures. So, but share information. Give us news of what's going on in your churches and your community centers after this meeting. Encourage us. You get my point? And just share ideas. That's the beauty of communications today. So please take that idea and do not let it die. Keep it up. Or with whatever system you want to use. I just mentioned the thing WhatsApp thing because the only thing I know. So the mission of the church, can anyone just tell me in a brief way, what do you understand the mission of the church to be? Share the gospel, the love of Jesus. What else? To the whole world. Well, to the whole world, yeah, of course. What else? Make disciples. That's the commission. What else? Say that again. Prepare people to enter into the kingdom of God. Who are people? All of us. Okay. What else? What do you see? What do you see the church? What's the reason for the church here, sister?
To mingle with the people, get to know the community.
And who are the people?
The community members get to
Who's supposed to mingle with the people?
We, the church.
So the church is not the people?
Yes.
Okay, okay. What got you thinking? I'm not going to answer all your questions, you know. I tell you that. What else, sister? Be supportive to each other. Oh, their neighbor? Mm-hmm. Yes, brother.
To help each other grow in Christ.
Help each other grow in Christ. Yes, sister.
Innovate new stuff for making the church or the church grow.
Mm-hmm.
And bring more people for the kingdom of God.
Okay. So the mission of the church. Yes.
Bring sinners to God.
Bring sinners to God.
Preach your message.
Huh?
Preach your message.
Preach the three angels' messages. Yes, sister.
Serve the community as God would have done, as Jesus did, and through that bring the people to.
Serve the community as Jesus did.
Yeah.
So using the method of Jesus and using his life as your example, tremendous. So the mission of the church is broad. Yes, another yes, brother. Be useful. Interesting. Don't be useless, be useful. Okay, we play with the words in English, you know.
Reflect Christ.
Reflect Christ. So as you can see, there's many ways of expressing what we perceive the mission of the church to be. We could go into deeper theological concepts, but we don't have time for that. I just want to set a platform, a foundation in our thoughts of what we're here about. What are we here for? Okay, what's the mission and the vision of the church? And you have expressed quite well many ways that we can express that. We have a challenge, however, and some of these statistics, I need to update them. Over 30,000 children die every day. I guess there's more now because they're killing kids like crazy. Last night I was watching this news and it just broke my heart. I turned it off because it's so depressing. Have you heard about Chechnya? Where's Chechnya? It's part of the Russian Federation. Is that correct? Do you know that the country of Russia is a country of over 70 countries? It's a federation. Somebody said it right. When you say Russia, you're talking about over 70 countries that are in a federation called the Federation of the Russian Republics. You remember the USSR? That stood for what? The Republic. When that fell, when it broke up, let's put it that way, some of the countries became independent. Others stayed in a federation. You get the point? Some that became independent were Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. Which one? All the stands except Pakistan. And you had what's the other? Moldova. You had Georgia and Belarus, Lithuania, Estonia. Those are part of the USSR. Remember? Yugoslavia. Well, it was kind of, yeah. When that broke up, these countries that I just mentioned became independent, but others stayed together and formed this federation. Chechnya is part of that. I mention this because the news last night was so depressing. The graphics are so crude. It really breaks the heart of even the worst in this world. They're killing their own children. And they showed some pictures that are really not nice. Yeah, regular news. At least I saw it last night on the news. So more than 30,000 children die every day, and these from preventable causes, but 6 million die of hunger every year. Hunger! Why should people be hungry today when we have so much food? And that is going to tie into your ministry and my ministry. I had this in mind to share, but let me just, because it's so pertinent. Sister White says in the book Welfare Ministry, by the way, Welfare Ministry, how many of you know this little book called Welfare Ministry? You know it or you don't? It's a compilation that was done of the writings of Ellen White. Not a big book. I would suggest to you that you get your hand on that little book. Welfare Ministry. I don't know if they changed the name or not, but that's the name I knew it by for the last 50 years or more. It's a compilation of the writings of Ellen White on welfare ministry. Okay? I think that little book, you know, not all the compilations of Ellen White are as let's say, well put together as this one is. When I say compilation, these are books that she did not write. They were put together, these books, from her writings. And it has been done by the what do you call these people? The estate, the White Estate. And we have quite a number of those books that are compilations that she did not pen directly, but they took the writings and put it. This little book is very powerful. Christian Service is another book that was put together by the compilers, the editors. But in this little book called Welfare Ministry, let me see if I can find it. Sister White says, if people with means would share their means, if we all would share what we have, there would be no hunger in the world. Oh, I said, but Lord, how's that going to happen? I mean, this is so powerful. I took it out. It's so important. If men would do their duty as faithful stewards of their Lord's goods, read into these words carefully what Sister White is saying. Whose goods are we talking about? The Lord's goods. If men as stewards, faithful stewards, would do their duty, there would be no cry for bread. You mentioned, sister, you see these ladies emerging every morning here in this city. Is it Brooklyn? But that's just a dot in the ocean. In every city in America, there's hunger.
Yes.
The country of plenty is poor. And Sister White said there would be no cry for bread. None suffering in destitution. None naked and in want. It is the unfaithfulness, she continues, of men that brings about the state of suffering in which humanity is plunged. God help us. So here we go. And this may not be new to you. It's not new to me either. But it's good to reflect on it constantly. Here we have it. 9+ million are malnourished. This is growing. 44% of the world's population of 7 billion plus does not have access to clean water. I could dwell a whole hour or more on that topic alone. When you see kids in Africa, and ladies, by the way, in Africa, as I observed over and over, the women and the girls, listen to this. The women and the young, no, come on now. Men, we are lazy, but not that much. But she's right. The women and the young ladies and girls are the ones that provide water, wood, and the cooking, and all that stuff for the family. If I had time, I would show you stuff, but I don't have time. I just want to bring it to your memory and your thoughts. These scenes, imaginary scenes to you. When you see people digging into the ground, sandy ground or whatever until they reach water. And they keep digging because the first streams of water you find is muddy. You got to go deeper and deeper until the water becomes clearer. But sometimes they don't wait for the clear water. They just drink the first one that comes up. They fill their little plastic containers. They put that on their heads. They have walked an hour or more to the stream. They have to walk an hour or more back home. Now, when you have to go and fetch water from so far with so much effort, do you care for that little pail of water you take back home? Do you really? You're not going to waste a drop of that water. When you travel in the Middle East, North Africa, when I used to go to those places, I would visit so many places. People would offer me a cup of tea. That's a very interesting concept. You know, that's a sign of hospitality. To deny drinking tea with somebody in that part of the world is an act of aggression. Even if you're not thirsty, you got to drink some tea. I was offered this tea so many times. First, I didn't know where the tea came from. Bless your heart. I did see the guy took the tea out of the hot water out of a pitcher. It wasn't murky, it was clear, but I still didn't know where the water came from, where it came from. And instead of regular tea, he put in a cup a few drops of some essence of some sort. It was very aromatic. I was having trouble with my throat, and he sensed it. He's an herbal doctor, by the way. I'm in the country of Morocco. I'm in a big market, the largest market I've ever seen in my life. It's more than 2 or 3 blocks long, 3 stories, packed with people selling goods. I have everything you can think of. In the middle of that market, we found this guy. Anyway, that's a long story, but he offered me tea. I was tempted to say no, thank you. I was with a friend from Spain. In Morocco, they speak French and Darija Arabic, which is a colloquial Arabic, and other languages. But French is the lingua franca. You know, it's a former French colony, so they speak French. And my friend says to me, you better drink it. First, it's good for you for your throat. I said, good for me. That drop, I don't know where that drop came from. But he says, but then the thought came back to me, for him to offer us tea is a tremendous sign of courtesy and hospitality. Yeah. Secondly, to despise it is a very bad manner. So, because water in that part of the world is precious. And when somebody gives up water of their own to offer you a cup of tea, you can't afford to say no. You can't do that, brother. You get it, you get it, or you didn't get it? Huh. So, 45 million are refugees. 43, that is growing. Refugees, this is so interesting. In Lebanon alone today, the country of Lebanon, there are over 2 million refugees from Syria and other countries in the Middle East, let alone Turkey. And the millions who have gone up to Greece, you know about that, you read it in the papers. And they're migrating up to Europe. You know, the big exodus from Syria and the Middle East, the exodus has not stopped. Just last night I was watching the news again and said, and this part that one would say, I know from first-hand experience, the sub-Saharan countries of Africa, sub-Saharan are the countries in northern Africa, just before you, in the Sahara Desert, just before you get to the central part of Africa, all the northern countries of Africa are very dry, and they're mostly Muslim. All Muslim. From Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, and Egypt, go south, except Ethiopia, which is mostly Coptic Orthodox. When you come back this other way, you come to Chad, you come to Niger, you come to Mauritania, you come to Burkina Faso, you come to Mali, and you go down further to Senegal, and those countries, Central Africa, the Central African Republic, they were all Muslims. Some of them were the worst kind. Some are more tolerant than others. So that part of the world is called Sub-Sahara. The daily pressure towards Europe is, you just can't stop it. I've been to those walls in Morocco. 5 meters tall. Well, that's high. That's like how many feet? 15 feet? Barbed wire. Electrified cables. When I go, just go along those walls, you just look on the other side. On this side is Spanish territory. Spain has 2 territories inside Africa. They call them enclaves. The enclave and the city of Ceuta, just across from Gibraltar. If you have an idea of the geography of Europe and Africa, Gibraltar is where you go into the Mediterranean Sea. The rock, okay, the big rock. Right in front of the rock is a little territory inside Morocco that's called Ceuta, it's Spanish. Little ways down, ways a couple of miles, 100 miles or more down to the east on the same coast is another territory called Melilla. That's closer to Algeria, but it's still in Morocco, kind of. Those 2 small states and cities are completely fortified with a wall. To get through that wall is a tremendous challenge. I look across those walls. Every day, hundreds try to breach that wall. Hundreds and thousands. That's just in Morocco. But from Libya, they're taking the ocean to Italy, crossing the sea. So the refugee number is way beyond that. Way beyond that. I mentioned AIDS. You know, you don't hear a whole lot about AIDS anymore. It used to be a real problem. It's contained to a certain degree. The church has an office in Africa. Dr. Giordano and his wife Eugenia, they just retired last year, by the way, spent over 25 years in Africa working with the AIDS situation for the Adventist Church. Their office, I think it's still there, was in the same building with our office when we had our office in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I would go, when I would go to our office, I would go up to the 2nd floor and visit with them. And you know, Dr. Giordano is a short guy. And he would tell me stories of his ministry amongst the AIDS patients in Africa. And some years ago, Uganda, you don't hear about, praise the Lord, it's more contained now than ever. Uganda was basically decimated by AIDS. Under Idi Amin and them times, you remember those times? It was rough. I did a crusade in the country of the Gambia. Have you ever heard about the Gambia?
Yes.
The Gambia is a little tiny, slender country inserted, so to speak, like a worm into Senegal. If you look at the map, it's inside Senegal, like a nail going in through Senegal. So in the Gambia, I visited, our church is very, very small in that country. And it's a Muslim country. And they just had a big problem. They had a change in regime recently. And the president didn't want to give up what he lost. Didn't want to give up power. Finally, a new president got in. It's 96 or 97% Muslim. And yet, you know, when I did the Evangelistic Crusade, I need to say, it was under the old regime. It wasn't that bad. The government opened to us, even gave us permission to preach on the streets. So that's where I preached, on the streets, in a plaza in Banjul. Banjul is the capital of Gambia. But the point is, I visited 2 of our schools, Adventist schools in that country at the time. In one of the schools, big school, you're talking about 1,000 students. 99% of them are non-Adventists. They're Muslims. And I would watch the little kids, even the kindergarten kids or maybe first graders. As soon as that bell would ring, or the mullah, or the voice over the loudspeaker, you know, that lamenting, they knew those kids would stop what they were doing in school. And they would all turn around and face Mecca. Little kids, girls and boys. They'll kneel down on the floor or bow down and say what they had to say, and they would go back to school. And the teachers knew that. They couldn't stop it. You don't stop it. That's their tradition. But the point I want to make is, the president of the field is not even a mission, it's a station, the church, a small place, said to me, he said, let's go visit some classrooms. So we did that. We visited this group of, I guess, kindergartners or first graders. They were little kids. And he said to me, President, he was from Ghana. He said, the kids want to sing for you. I said, that's nice. So we sat there and the kids surrounded us and they sang. But I could sense in the tune on their faces sadness. It wasn't one of those jolly African songs. It was it's a very sad singing. So I said to him, Elder, what are they saying? Why are they so subdued? The kids. You know, he said, oh, Elder. I said, what are they saying in the song? Tell me, just give me a quick translation of what the lyrics are. He said they're singing about AIDS. About what? How their parents have died with AIDS. And they're singing their song to each other, do not contract, because you too. That's my heart. I said to the president, I said, Elder, I'm here for a while. If I came back here in 10 years, would these kids be here? He said, not many, because they're all sick with AIDS. This is just rough. This is the kind of world we're living in. And so, AIDS, what can I say? The experts say that this is not going to change, getting worse, and I think you're right. So, here we go. Look. Franklin Graham is the son of the late, no, he's still alive, is he not? Billy Graham died? No. His wife died. Ruth died, but Billy's still alive. He's 90. So Franklin is one of his sons, I suppose. And he runs the business called, the charity called the Samaritans Purse. I just kind of quote him because I thought what he said was very relevant. Perhaps the greatest how is related to Christian identity that will face evangelical relief in the next 50 years is to make sure we don't dilute our faith as we respond to hurting people around the world. So one of your challenges and my challenge is, how do you keep the faith undiluted in a changing and challenging world, right? And we may talk a little bit about some ideas here and preconceived ideas that I grew up with as a church member, and you may have grown up with the same thing, and it challenges my thinking. But I'll get to that eventually. So this is a challenge that the church faces, and I think Franklin expressed this well. How do you keep your faith undiluted in serving a changing and challenging world? So, why should we partner with the poor? Why not with the rich? If you look at Jesus' ministry, and somebody mentioned that this morning, I think you did, sister, following Jesus' example. Was it you? Who did Jesus partner with? Give me an example. Give me an example. You said the poor. I heard somebody say the poor. Okay, start with the disciples. Fishermen. Okay, I mean, we could on that topic for quite a bit. Unlearned people, unskilled, well, unskilled in missionary work at least. They were good, skilled fishermen, and they had a profession. That's not a bad. That's not to put down anything, you know. How many of you like fishing? Well, just a few. I don't have a lot of friends here. I love fishing. You see, I grew up on an island, so I fished all my early life. Ask the question again. You see more hands going up, right? So Jesus called simple people. And if you go through his ministry, you know, case by case, you look at the gospel, just read it. You will find that he was more in tune with the outcast and the poor of his time than he was with the elite. In fact, Jesus' ministry was centered not in Jerusalem. He worked from the periphery into the city. You get what I'm saying? Yes. He did not start in the center and then went out. He went out and came back to the center. So, partnering with the poor is interesting. A truly integrated, practical, and effective approach to ministry is the poor. No. Should we neglect the rich? No. Why no? Tell me a good reason why not.
Because Christ died for them too.
Well, that's a nice answer. Uh-huh. They have resources. But besides the financial part, what a, you know, this brother made a good point. What difference does it make if you have money or no money at the foot of the cross? Is there any difference? I mean, when you look at salvation and a soul as a person, what difference does it make? Where you come from, what language you speak, how much money you have, what family name do you carry? It doesn't matter a bit. Zip. Zero. Nada. So the bottom line is, I think you made a good point. Christ died for everybody. Is that so? We just happen to live in a dysfunctional world caused by sin, right? But we must also partner with the rich. But when you look at helping people, like you do, like we all do, partnering with them is shift from having the answer for others to an attitude of continual learning with others. There's a difference there. You know, the Chinese proverb you've probably heard, if you want to teach someone, how does it go? If you want them to feed them for a little bit, teach them how to plant corn or whatever. Rice. That's what you eat in China and other parts of the world. You think Chinese eat rice? No. How many of you eat rice here? Oh, I got a lot of friends here. You know, talking about rice eating, just a quickie, people think that Chinese people eat rice more than any part of the world. That's not true. Well, I eat rice a lot. So, you eat rice?
The right kind of rice.
The sticky rice. The sticky rice, of course.
Still rice.
How about the Dominican? Comen arroz?
Rice and beans.
Rice and beans. Ah, that's perfect. How about from Cuba? Congri. Nobody knows what congri is right here. You know what congri is? What is it?
It's the rice it's mixed together.
What?
It's black.
Aha, the black beans. So, rice, right? Moro, arroz moro. If you want to teach person, just teach them, for a while, just teach them to plant rice. And rice grows in a few months, and you can harvest it. But if you want to teach them to live forever, to feed themselves, teach them how to fish. Many times we as a people just give people something to eat. For how long can you do that? One of the issues I have, not issues, but concerns I have with our system as a church. And let me ADRA. I support ADRA as a ministry. I do. I believe in that ministry. It's good after a disaster, be there to help people. They need help. They need water, shelter, food, medicine, and care. That's their basic present need. Is that correct? But if you talk about the poor in the world, people who are in this undesirable cycle of poverty, you're born poor, you live poor, and you die poor. It's endemic in the family. There's no way out, humanly speaking. For how long can ADRA sustain giving these people 3 meals a day? The number is not going to go down. It's going to just grow. So we as a church must find a way to help people get out of that cycle. Just not continue feeding them. Yes, sister.
That's what community services come in.
Amen.
Because ADRA is for the emergency, and then community services.
Come in behind and help. But ADRA has camps in Africa and Middle East that they serve constantly. And I guess the need is constantly there. That's why I have to be there. I'm not trying to pick on that. I'm just telling you, I'm just giving you just an example. But how long can we sustain the feeding of millions or thousands or tens of thousands of people, just giving them food? You come, you get your morning ration, you go home, you sit down and wait for the next ration. Then you come in the afternoon, give me, gimme, gimme, and gimme. I'm not against that. But there ought to be a way to break that cycle. Yes. Are you with me?
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
You just can't continue perpetuating a bad situation. So, here we go. Join hands with evangelicals around the world. This is interesting wording. Some of you may not agree with that. Should you join with evangelicals around the world as co-disciples and co-learners in discovering the Lord's way forward in development? Some people said yes, some people said no. I was in the country of Tanzania. Where's Tanzania? Eastern Africa. All right, on the Indian Ocean. I was visiting a little Adventist hospital in the bush. That's really the bush. At the time, there was no electricity in that part of the world. There was no electricity in the clinic. Let me just give you a quick what it was like there. Then I come back to my thought. The clinic is a little compound in the middle of nowhere. Dr. Oster probably passed away. He was retired then, and he was an older guy. Bless his heart. Spent the rest of his life in that bush. I said, Dr. Oster, how do you run a clinic without electricity? He said, well, we have this little plant here, generator, and when we have an emergency, we turn it on. When I went into the operating room, that's a very interesting topic. I looked around and the cables were dangling out of the outlets, just like, my goodness. I said, Doctor, is that safe? And he said, well, that's all we got. One little bulb, one little light for him to work with in an emergency if it's at night. I could go on. Finally, I said, he gave me a tour of the little place. I said, how you sterilize things here? We boil it. We boil it, steam it. And then he took me to a whole contraption of pipes and tubes and what have you, where he produced saline material for intravenous. You know what I'm saying? What do you call it? IV thing. He made it there. He sterilized the whole thing. I'm not, you know, this guy was a genius. You see? But the thing I want to come to, he said to me, Elder, we have a problem here. I said, what's the problem? He said, there's a Lutheran hospital down, further down, which is a bigger town, Lutheran. It's a nicer hospital. They have electricity. We are in the bush. I mean, this is the bush. It's a missionary hospital. And he said the problem is that they have asked us, the Lutherans, to join with them in a combined effort to go do some missionary work, especially in health, in some surrounding communities here in this region. But the leadership of the church said we should not join them. So I said to him, why would you not? Well, because you're not Seventh-day Adventists. I said, well, does the suffering care who you are? You get the point? So how do you deal with that situation in an urban setting here, so? Are we open to creative ways of addressing the problem? Again, you will answer. I don't ask for an answer. You answer because you want it. I want you to start thinking. All I want to say to you is, how far can we go as a people to join hands with others to do work that we see needs to be done? It's something you need to think about, right? Give you one quick example of what happened to me here in America. My wife and I, we just moved. We lived in Maryland for many years after working in New Jersey, not far from here. We served in New Jersey for over 11 years. I never got to New York City hardly. I would see it from afar, from the turnpike. I look and see Lower Manhattan. I said, bless your heart, right there. That's okay. Then my wife would say to me, let's go to Chinatown just for a Sunday. And so, but, you know, we moved to Maryland. Let's put it that way. In 2000. I went to the union to work at the union there in Columbia Union for 5 years. But when we came to Maryland, I said to my wife, we were members of the little church in Princeton, New Jersey for years, there in the conference, the New Jersey conference. We went there just to help. It was a small community. It was then a small church struggling. Princeton is a very highly educated community. You know that. That's where the seminary is. And we tried to penetrate, and we bought this little church building in the city, in the town, and we were members there for a while. But when we moved to Maryland, I said to my wife, you know, I'm going to be traveling quite a bit throughout the union. Let's go find a church that you're comfortable with, because you're going to be the one mostly here. So we visited many churches. You know, at the time, there were over 70 or 80 Adventist churches around the General Conference of all the different languages. I had a list of them. Anybody knew or know Monte Salin? Some of you know Monte Salin, right? Monte and I worked together for some time, and he was at the union at the time. I think he's still in Ohio. That's where he is. He's in Ohio still, yeah. He retired in Ohio. Monte is the one that put together this list, and he would keep it up every year. A list of all the churches surrounding General Conference. There were 50, over 70 at the time. So I said to my wife, pick from this list and see which one you fancy, and let's go start looking. We visited many churches. We went to the big churches, Emmanuel Brinklow. You know what Emmanuel Brinklow is? A big church. They're in Maryland. The Alleghenies Conference, big, beautiful church. I went to Seabrook. Anybody knows where Seabrook is? Maryland? Beautiful church. Whitley Phipps was pastoring, I think, maybe at the time. You know who Whitley Phipps is? Yes. The singer? Yes. And we visited other churches, Spencerville, the highfalutin high church brethren up there. The $1 million organ, pipe organ. Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. I said to her, she said, I don't like any of those. Oh, Lord have mercy. So what are you going to do now? So I said, well, we need to find a church. I said that before. We didn't go there. So we heard about this new church plant, or church that was coming up in Tacoma Park. Anybody knows where Tacoma Park is? And the pastor of that church, we heard, that is going to be Pastor Rodriguez, whom we knew. Pastor Rodriguez is from El Salvador. And he worked in South America when I was working down there as well. So anyway, so she said, well, let's go to that little church. The church began because of a split. The Adventist people like to fight, It doesn't matter what language you speak. Sometimes we don't get along well. Huh? So I'm not going to get deep into that part. But this church branched off because they couldn't get along. I don't know all the details, but they were just getting at it. So they started this new little congregation with 30 or 40 people. And Pastor Rodriguez was asked to pastor that church, I was told. So she says, well, let's go there. So we go some. At the time, the church was meeting in the old ABC locale in Tacoma Park. If any of you know Maryland a little bit, you probably remember that. So we go there, and there's the church. 30, 40 people. In the old ABC place. Corner, beautiful corner. So I said, no, we got home. I said, what do you think? She said, I like that church. I said, you like that church? Yeah. Okay. Go get your membership from Princeton to Tacoma Park Spanish Church, by the way. So we go there. We're still there. Well, still there. We just moved. But the point I want to make is one day, the pastor asked me to be elder. I said, Pastor, I really can't be an elder of the church effectively. I travel very often throughout the union, and many Sabbaths I'm not here. It wouldn't be fair. But he says, but I want you to come to all our board meetings and be an elder honoris, whatever you call that thing. Emeritus. Yeah, beautiful, highfalutin title. With no pay, but that's okay. So I go. One day I was traveling to Columbus, Ohio that afternoon for a board meeting at the Allegheny West Conference. And I was catching a flight that afternoon for Ohio, but they had this board meeting in the morning. So I said I'd go to the board meeting, and then I'd go quickly to the airport. So I go to the board meeting at the church. And when I got there's the board, the pastor was leading out, and they were struggling with some ideas, with all kinds of agenda items. You church people, when you get into board meetings, what you talk about? I'm going to get into problems. I'll probably get into that later, I hope. If I don't, let me just say it now. I hope your church board agendas are different than what they used to be. Instead of talking about disciplining people and complaints and what color the door is going to be, what color the carpet is going to be, do we need a new roof? Talk about outreach. Yes. Cut it out. Yes. The majority of your agenda should be on missionary outreach and planning for God's cause. But we spend hours talking about what color the wall is going to be. Oh, I don't like red carpet. I like dark. So what? And we spent 2 hours on that topic. And then that young man, he's not walking straight. He needs to be disciplined. And the young lady over there, that family? They don't come to church out. They put them on. Come on now. Listen, those things, I'm not trying to put them down. I'm just saying how much of your time you spend on them things when you ought to be spending on other things. Anyway, enough of that. So I get to the board meeting, and they're struggling with this topic. So I listened. I said, brethren, what's the problem? Well, by the way, the small congregation, 40 people or so, decides to buy the building from the Potomac Conference ABC. So these are all immigrants. 99% of them undocumented immigrants at the time. I don't know about now, probably the same. I don't know. They want to buy a building that's over $1 million. Where you get the money from? So, but you know what? Long story short, while I was at the union, the request came from that church, little church, for a loan from the revolving fund. You know what that is? Some of you know what it is. It's a fund run by the unions, the way we loan money to churches and institutions of the church to build up the church, which is a wonderful thing. I was a member of that for years. So the petition came to the board, and anybody knows Harold Lee? You all don't know Harold Lee. Huh? Harold Lee was my colleague in the union for years. He's now retired in Oakwood, in Huntsville. Harold says, no way. And he was right. How are they going to pay it back? $1 million for a church of 40 or 50 of immigrants earning minimum wage or less without any job, any work, security. Who's going to pay for that? The Potomac Conference says, no way, we are not going to endorse that loan. And we had to get the signature of the Potomac Conference officers. Otherwise, it's not going to go through. So, but anyway, long story short, they finally, I said, brethren, listen, this is my church now. I want to say something to you. You can say no, but listen to me before you say no. This is the church board. the CURF, Columbia Regional Development Fund Board. I said, listen, I know some of these people. I know the pastor. And as a member of that church, I want to tell you that I and them together, we will pay that loan back.
Amen.
How? Don't ask me now. I don't have the answer. This is all by faith now. But give them a break. Please. Finally, Potomac Conference got a waiver from I don't know who. They got a variance on the policy. And they signed off on the loan, and we bought the church. Paying like Dickens, Over $1 million were in the church. Hurting for money. The mortgages were like $8,000 a month. It was big money. Plus utilities. So the argument was, we have 2 requests from congregations wanting to rent our church. You get the point now?
Yep.
So I'm listening now. I'm in the pew. The board is in session. And the issue is, one of the congregations is an Adventist French-speaking congregation, brother. And the other is a small Pentecostal group wanting to rent one of the rooms. I don't know which ones. So it's a nice place. It used to be the old ABC. They had a lot of rooms. They have a lot of rooms. So I said to them, so I listened for a while. My clock is ticking. I need to get out of here. I could catch a flight. And they were saying no. One group said no. So I begged the pastor. I said, Pastor, may I just hear a few words before I leave? I really have to go. I'm sorry. But he said, sure. So I said to the brethren, and I kind of knew these elders already. I've been there for a little bit, so I knew them. I said, now, what is the problem? Well, they will come with their children, he said. This young one. He's still there, by the way. I said, my good friend. They will come with their children. These are the people, the new people. I said, so? And they will mess up our walls. We just painted them. And the bathrooms, they will just destroy it. So I listened carefully. I said, well, brethren, don't we have children too? I don't think they're hardly any better. Our kids mess up too, don't they? I said, Elder, Pastor, Brother Chair, one more thought before I leave. I said to them, brethren, God has provided this place to us in a miraculous way. We're paying out of our nose, yeah, that's true. But we're paying. It's becoming ours. Where were you before you came here? Oh, we were renting the Methodist church down the road there. I said, so when you were in need, the brethren at the Methodist church opened their doors to you. Now you have 2 requests for renting facilities, and you really need the money. That's for sure. You could use the money. But beyond the money issue, they need a place to meet, to fellowship. One is a Seventh-day Adventist group, and the other is not. What is the problem? Oh, they make too much noise, Pastor. But I said, but when they're meeting, you are not meeting. The Adventist group would meet in the afternoon, the French-speaking group. So there will be no competition, right? And they're going to be meeting not in the main sanctuary, in an adjacent room. The Pentecostal group will be meeting in the evenings at a different room. I said, what's the problem? Oh, they're going to mess. I said, listen, brethren, I'm going to leave Elder, but it's a burning shame that when we needed somewhere to be, somebody opened their doors. And now when somebody needs a place to be, we close our doors. Think about it. And I left. The next thing, weeks went by, I went back to church, and this one night we're in whatever service, and I hear these drums. I said, since when we have drums in this church? They said, no, Pastor, it's the Pentecostal group over there in that group. I said, so they're here. Yeah. I said, praise the Lord. I said, you like the drums? I said, sure. Not because I like drums necessarily. I was just being facetious, you know. So I said, that's fine. They're locked up in a room. You could hear the boom, boom, boom. But, it didn't bother me. The point is, to what extent can you be so exclusive that you become irrelevant? You get my point? So ponder on that. In this work, Jesus partnered with people that you probably would not partner with. See? And yet we must partner with the poor. Will Christians help speed the exodus to out of poverty? Some poor are getting out, some are not. Are we perpetuating their situation? I don't know. The divine commission of the church does not need any reform, does it? It's clear. You shouldn't change that. Don't edit what Jesus said. Is that so? You don't do that. Christ's way of presenting the truth cannot be improved upon. He gave them practical lessons to the disciples. He sympathized with the weary and the heavy laden. And by the good he accomplished by his loving words and kindly deeds, he interpreted the gospel to men. Welfare ministry. Here's the book, chapter 6. If you have not gotten that book, go down to ABC, and if they don't have it, order it. It's going to be your second Bible, really, when you talk about welfare ministry, like you do. Okay. Here we go. His main work was to mingle with the poor and the needy and the ignorant. In simplicity, he opened before them the blessings they might receive, and he aroused in them the hunger for the bread of life. And there you go, testimonies to the church. If we would humble ourselves before God, humble ourselves before whom? And be kind. And what? Courteous. And tender-hearted. And pitiful. There would be 12. 100. You talk about soul winning? Here's a formula that we should explore and exploit. You know, as a church, we spend a lot of money in evangelism. Do you know that? Yes. I mean, what are you groaning about, Bella? Do we or do we not?
Too much.
I didn't say that. I said a lot. You added too much.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go there. But all I know is that we do spend a lot. A lot. A lot. And I'm not putting that down. As the song says, you know, I do evangelism. I've slowed down a little bit because of my work, but I've done quite a number of evangelistic crusades. But I'm on the cheap side of evangelism. I can do a crusade for just a few $1,000s and maybe less. Practical. But inexpensive. How about that? Not cheap. I agree. You know, I have done 3 crusades in Indonesia. Tough place to do crusades. One in Sulawesi. That's the Hebrides, the islands. Indonesia is all islands, by the way. It's a country of islands. You know, they tell me they have 17,000 islands. So I said, you must count every rock. And in low tide, you have 20,000 because the rocks come out of the ocean, you know. And in high tide, they go down, you know. And they would look at me, they would laugh. But it's all islands. Sulawesi is on the eastern edge of the country, in the middle of nowhere, in the ocean, obviously. And it's mostly Muslim out there. Lord blessed us in spite of it. And it was not expensive. I did another crusade, the second one in Bali. Have you heard about Bali? Bali is a perceived paradise where thousands of tourists, hundreds of thousands of tourists go every year. Just after this massacre they had this bombing in Bali. And a bunch of Australians and other people were killed. I went to the shrine. I came after that. So I've done quite a number of evangelistic crusades. In Solo City, so that's the name of the city, in the island of Java, the main big island. I done another crusade. That's the last time I did there. But also did crusades I mentioned in Africa. In Burundi. Have you heard about Burundi? Bujumbura. I did a crusade in Bujumbura. God blessed us there. I did in the Gambia. I mentioned that to you. But I also have done crusades here in America. People say you can't do crusades. Yeah, you can. And God blessed us. In Maryland, I did. In the Panhandle of Maryland, Cumberland, if you know where that is. I did it, and God blessed us anyway. I've done crusades in Central America and Inter-America for many, many years. 2 in Peru. 1, 2 in Peru. 1 in Argentina. See? And 2 in Cuba. Several in Central America. And so I'm not putting it on evangelism. But as I said, I'm on the inexpensive side. I can do a crusade for less than $5,000 overseas. Overseas. I don't do those expensive brochures you guys do. I do a little piece of paper that I put it through the copier. No, don't laugh at me now. Don't laugh. And you know what? It works. So I don't spend them big money. But all I'm saying to you is, here's a formula for success that we have not exploited. If you can baptize 100 person in during a crusade here in America, you're a hero. I mean, by God's grace, that's wonderful. You know, I've been in crusades where we didn't baptize 1. I brought an evangelist one day into a conference I was leading out in, so I'm not going to mention the name, very renowned evangelist here in the United States. Spent thousands of bucks. Big money. Big. Too big. The elder preached his heart out every night. At the end of the series, not one. He was so disappointed. I was too. We didn't baptize one solid, simple soul. Until this day, I sat with him, I said, Elder, what did we do wrong? Everything, all the mechanisms were in place. All the ingredients were there. I don't want to get into the dynamics, but it didn't happen. All I'm saying here, if you and I were kind, courteous, tender-hearted, humble and pitiful, God would provide 100 when we only have one. Do you believe in those words? I wonder if that works. You better test it. Some of you start testing it individually and try to make it a motto in your church to do the same. See what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. If Christians become passionate about the needs of people not like them, what kind of people? You don't look like me, you don't talk like me, you don't dress like me, you don't eat like me, but I still love you. Huh? They will have more to offer mainstream culture. Andy Crouch is this guy, you know, he's now passed. I think he was the founder of the TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network. Have you heard that? Yes. Big outfit. It's the largest Christian television broadcasting network in the world. I think he's now died. He's gone. The church must more effectively combine word and deed, concrete action for the best of the other society, a lifestyle of radical servanthood. We need to take a break. So I know you're a tough master, but you need to give people a break. What time you should take a break?
Now is a good time.
No, it's a good time. The boss has spoken. We'll take 10 minutes break. Stop right here. Okay, let's continue. Let's talk about the structure quickly. You have the notes before you. I may skip some of it. So the mission of the church should dictate the structure. Is that correct? You do not fix the structure you do not fix your mission because of changing times. The mission continues to be the same. The structure needs to be subservient to the mission. Is that correct? That's a philosophical point, but it's very true. Yes, sir.
When you say structure, you're talking about the structure of what?
Of everything. Everything. Activities. Organizations. You know what I'm saying? The structure of an organization should serve the mission of that organization. If a part of the structure does not serve the mission of that organization, what should you do? Change it. Change it. You know, you hear this saying, we have always done it this way. Well, come on. Times have changed. You know, we don't do things today as we did back 20 years ago. Things have changed. Is that true? Yes. Now, how many of you have a cell phone? How many of you have 2 cell phones? 3 cell phones? I don't know. Don't answer me. But mostly everybody has a cell phone today. 20 years ago, you didn't have that thing. You didn't have no Facebook. You didn't know what WhatsApp was, like me. You didn't know nothing. Huh? You didn't know nothing, you know. You didn't have no cell phone. You left home, and if you wanted to call back, you had to go to a payphone or some sort, some station. You remember those days? And if some of you remember the olden days, you have to go send a telegraph, you're really old. But that's the way it was, right? And we did church back then. We did mission back then with what we had. Is that so? Yes. No, you have the cell phone, you have the this, and you have the that, you have the everything. The mission hasn't changed. You just have to make the structure work for the mission. Is that correct? Okay, so let's skip quickly over that. mission doesn't change, the structure does. To stay relevant, we must adjust to changing times and technology. I could tell you a lot. Let's talk quickly about the margin. That takes us to the latter part. You know, as sacred as church work is, you still need money for it. Now, money. You know, people are your friends until you start touching their purse. You see? You know, one of the most sensitive thing is your money. Your money. The mission of the church requires funding. Your organization locally demands money. Otherwise, you'll be out of business in no time. That's the way this world is. You see? So margin is what businesses look forward to make money. You buy it for $10, you sell it for 15. You make a profit. Is that correct? That's your margin. In non-profit organizations like the ones we represent, our margin is at least to break even. At least to break what? Even. If there is a positive margin, profit, it should go back into the mission, into the structure to make it better. You get the point? You know, I worked with the hospital system of the church for many years. Didn't work. I was part of it. As a conference and union officer, I was part of that structure for years. Our hospitals are non-profit institutions, but they make money. Big time. I was part of the finance committee for many years of the health system. I sat on many committees. Every time we had 20 to 30 million gain, we would shoot for like 20 to 30 million dollars a year in profit back in those days. Why? That money would go back into the system to buy a new MRI system, machine, or a CAT scan, whatever, because we had to put the money back into the ministry. We cannot spend it. It's not for profit. You get the point? But we still had to make money. Why? Machines break down. So in your business, in your ministry, you need money. Is that so? Yes. Who here doesn't need any money? We all need money. So margin is what you look at to make the business run. All right, let's go quickly here now. However, in nonprofit, the margin is simply to break even. So it's not only necessary for current operation, but for future indefinite viability. Nonprofit's margin is more reaching the goals than making a profit. However, parameters must be set and followed if you want to be relevant and continue being a going concern. What is a going concern? Yes. If an auditor came into your organization, you know what an auditor is? Yes. And in his report, in her report, he says, this organization is not a going concern, that's bad news. The term going concern in auditing means you are relevant and you have a little bit of life in you. If you are a non-going concern, you are dead, you're in bankruptcy. I've been associated with some organizations in the church, primarily schools, where the auditing team would not even give an opinion. It was so bad. They said, we can't even give an opinion in this business. It's not a going concern. You should be bankrupt years ago. You know, bankruptcy in the church, you don't hear about that. Because we keep things going even though they're dead. You see what I'm saying? No, if you were a business out there in the corner, and you're not making any money, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to shut that down in no time. You can't continue losing money. You know what I'm saying? All these big stores that are closing is because you're losing money. They're not a going concern anymore. You know, you read about it in the papers, you hear about it. Big firms are going out of business. They're not a going concern anymore. So you need planning. How do you keep your ministry working well? Organizing, planning, look at long-term strategic plans, develop annual goals, objectives, and operating plan. Estimate specific costs. Challenge every assumption. If something is not working anymore, or if it has accomplished its purpose, shut it down. You know, Peter F. Drucker is a famous, he's now passed away, famous strategist and counselor. When do you stop pouring resources into things that have achieved their purpose? This is a letter he wrote to this guy out there it has this big church, the Purpose, Driven Life? What do you call that thing? Yeah, the guy who wrote that book. Rick Warren. He told Rick Warren, he said, why do you continue doing this? Well, he's always done it that way. Well, in the church we do that too. Well, maybe it's time to shut it down and start something afresh. So when something has accomplished its mission, change it, renovate it, or do away with it. But just don't keep on funding it. Enough said. Budgeting and mission. Budgeting is the allocation of resources to achieve desired goals. Budgeting is trying to pair up income with what? Expenses. That's what you call a budget. Okay? Match income and expense. Don't simply increase. You say, you know, I need more money. I'm going to increase my income on paper. Well, that's a foolish idea. If you know you're going to spend $100 a month on electricity, you're going to spend it. That's the history of your cost. Don't budget for 80 to balance the budget. If you know that your income has, typically been X amount of dollars a year, unless you have a unique plan to increase revenues, don't put more income in the budget to make it fit. After serving the church for all these years in several of the organizations I work with, I'm not going to mention the names. One of them was, when I got there, it was in bankruptcy. Simply bankruptcy. The payroll checks were bouncing. We didn't have no money even to pay the workers. Let me tell you, I've been through some issues. I went to the president, Mr. President, we're in bankruptcy. And when I looked at the system, on the paperwork before, I said, Elder, our problem has been, in the past, our budgeting system is a failure. He looked at me and he says, budgeting? I said, yes, sir. What does that have to do with it? I said, it has a lot, all to do. You have been budgeting income that you never realized. In this one case, they would budget $300,000 for evangelistic offerings. They never got even $50,000 in the past. Of course you can balance the budget with a strike of a pen. And the treasurer would say to him, Mr. President, we have a balanced budget. Take it to the board. Well, I took it to the board. And when I looked at the budget carefully, I said, you never got over $60,000 for evangelistic funds. How are you going to put $200,000 in the budget? Well, of course it made it fit. It worked. You balanced the budget. But at the end of the day, what? You're short. Because you spend as if though you're going to get the money, but you didn't get the money. You can't do that in business. You can't do that. Don't reduce real expenses thinking you're going to do good when you know you're going to spend it to make the budget fit. But it's more than just a list of accounts. And this guy says budget is like a moral document. What is something moral? Right or wrong? I mean, it's serious business, right? A moral issue. He says budget is a moral document. I think he has some point. It's just not a matter of somebody putting some numbers together. It has some spirit to it. it has some responsibility to it. You get the point? You just can't do that and get by. So, it's a planning tool that makes resources go further. It may look difficult, but it's critical to the mission of the church. It should not be a routine process. We call it predictive intelligence to detect problems before they come. Reactive to proactive. You know, you don't want to react. You want to be what? Proactive. So budget helps you do that if you do it right. It should not be static or historical document. It should be basically an adaptive document agent. Why? If you in your budget says, I'm going to spend $100 a month in electricity in my center, but then the company increased your rates in the month of March, which you did not expect, or your water bill went up, or something else went up, what are you going to do? You got to make some change in your course. If your ship is heading in the wrong direction and is going off course, it would be really stupid if you didn't do anything about it. Right or wrong? You got to turn the ship around. You got to do something to make it get back on course. Vice versa, or the other side of the coin is, you know, if you expected to receive $100,000 in a year, Louis, and come October you're down to 45, you know you're in deep waters. You're in deep trouble. You know you ain't going to get that money in 2 or 3 months, the rest of the money. You got to make changes. In fact, it's too late. That ship is already gone off course. That's why you need to look at your budget more often. You just can't do it and put it in the drawer. You got to make it work constantly. Adaptive. A budget that supports the organization's strategic goals and drives decision-making is an important part of the organization's success in delivering its mission. In other words, the budget must be dynamic. You must look it over every month. What did I say? Every month. You see, the budget in an organization like yours is not like your salary. If you work and you know how much you earn a month, you know that. At least if you work on a salary basis, right? You know that. So in your home, Luis, and in my home, I know how much I receive, and I know how much I can spend, right? So you say to your wife or to your husband, to your children, you know what? This is our budget for the year, or for whatever, the month. We should not exceed this unless, there are some exceptions. If the refrigerator goes out, you have to buy a new unit right away, or your washer, right? So you get in debt. You say, ooh, I didn't plan to spend $1,500 on a new fridge, but this thing isn't working. So you go down the store and you get that new fridge, but you must immediately make plans in your budget to what? To pay for that thing. Well, this, like a guy I work with, he's still alive, by the way, a good friend of mine. As a church worker, we worked together overseas. This guy is so meticulous. He's still so. He would put aside every month from the meager missionary salary we were receiving. I say meager because it wasn't much. Overseas, you know, in the States here you get a little more, but you spend a lot more too. But overseas, your salary is very, very, very modest. And he would put aside every month, in his own way, $10 for a refrigerator, $5 for a washer, $3 for an air conditioner, and he went down to, right, so, and he had the money in cash. So if something went wrong in his house, he had the money. That he did that. He didn't wait for the refrigerator to break. Then you go downstairs and get a new one on credit, and they kill you with the interest, but you got to get it. So all I'm saying, right, depreciation, fund it. It's a set of financial projections that serves two important things, planning and monitoring. Monitoring is taking action constantly. Okay? Wait, what happened here? What happened to you here now? Does you call that technology? I didn't budget for that. I must have touched something wrong here.
Oh, you just pressed that.
There you go. Look at that.
It's budget.
It's budget. It is a guide to responsible and efficient use of resources, as we said, okay? It provides a systematic way to manage operations throughout the year. That's why you have to look at it, monitor it, controlling ongoing activities, keeping institution on track, okay? Monthly. I want to show you quickly, it's in your notes. I don't want to spend much time on that because it's kind of dry, but it's there. You need to prepare, what did I do again here? You need to prepare a monthly report for yourself and maybe for your board, if you have a monthly board. And again, if a program is exceeding budget, costs can be cut or more funds can be made available. There's some exceptions. For example, if you had planned to spend $100 a month in electricity, and in fact you're spending 90 instead of 100 for the first 6 months, you have realized some gain there. You know that? So you can say, look, my electric bill is not as high as I thought it would be, and if this trend continues, I would have a few dollars left over at the end of the year that I can use in a different part of the ministry that's needing funding. So you can switch. You can cost shift. Okay? That's not sinful. You're just using your resources in the best way. So the budget needs to be flexible. Likewise, instead of $100 a month, you're paying $110 in electricity. You need to say, ooh, I need $10 more a month just for electricity. Maybe we can pull from this fund to pay this additional $10 because we have no choice, you see? So it has to be flexible. That's the point, flexibility. Okay, periodic revision, mid-year adjustments. Don't wait till the ship is on the rocks to turn it around. Start turning. If it's a big ship, start turning early. It takes the time to turn around a ship. Okay, revise your budget. Make adjustments. Look at your year-to-date, YTD, year-to-date, your actual plus your revised projections, and take a look at it constantly. 4 main steps. Getting started. This is what I did in my ministry, and I suggest it to you. You can do what you want. But in the first quarter of the year, this is 2017. We're in the second quarter now, right? Are we? In the first quarter of this year, I would start budgeting for 2018. You said that early? Yeah. Because of the way we worked. You may not have to do that so early, but you need to do it. For planning during the second quarter, we work more on the budget because of our system back in AWR. Goals and objectives early in the third quarter, and forecasting activity, put it on paper by July 31. That was my deadline. All the regions I mentioned to you in AWR would have to make their own budgets for the regions. Asia Pacific, Europe, Africa, and the Americas, and headquarters. Then we have Guam, in our case. Guam is our main station on the island of Guam. So, I would demand that all these regions and institutions around the world, our office in London, our office in Bangkok, our office in Africa, we had one, and in headquarters in Guam, and one in Germany, we want your budget in our hands by July 31, local budgets. Because the treasurer would then take all the local regional budgets and combine them into one consolidated budget. That's the one I would take to the board. You follow me? So by July 31, I need that. You can do different scheduling, but you need to do it. Okay. Passion for mission. Sometimes we say, you know, this is in-house business. We'll do this and do that. Let's be careful that we don't become too typical in carelessness. Meaning, don't overlook business realities. What do I mean by that? Oh, we don't have any money. In your board, you go, Brad, we need to replace the children's department, what have you. We don't have any money. You know this treasurer? the typical, well, not typical, but some churches, the pastor walks into his office and he says, no. And the pastor says, why you say no? The church says, I don't know what you need, but the answer is no. The mentality of no and scarcity kills us. I know you need new chairs for the children's department. The kids are falling off the chairs you have, but the answer is no. We don't have any money. We are broke. And you know, people live with that idea all their life. Get out of that for at least for a moment. Good grief. Okay, let's find a way to fix those chairs for the kids. All right? We may not have the funds this moment, but let's find a way. That's creativity. That's positive thinking. Okay? So be careful when you say, bias toward informality, you know? Oh, just do it. You know, elder, we need to do it. Go ahead and do it. No. What do you need? I need $1,000 to fix this. Oh, go ahead, take the money out and do it. That's too informal. Get together. Put your heads together. Do a meeting, even if it's 3 people. Set up a set of minutes. Write it down. Present, May 9, 2017, Sister so-and-so, Brother so-and-so, Elder so-and-so met. We voted to spend $1,000 on what have you. Explain it. Coming from this fund, sign it off. You have a minute to show. That's formal, good business practice. In the church, we tend to be too informal. Too informal. In the church, we have no record sometimes of anything. Then somebody comes after you, Louis, and says, who replaced that door for $1,000? Well, Louis did. Oh, really? Where did he authorize it?
Walter did it.
Walter did it. There's no record of it. You don't operate that way. It doesn't matter how small you are. Keep your records clean. Write it down. Sign it off. File it. So when Johnny comes around the next time, he knows what happened. He says, oh, here's the story. Louis changed that door because it was broken. The board approved it. Whether you like it or not, it was voted. So, hey, you do it. Okay. Okay. Let me just go quickly here.
Pastor, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying about having all this clarity on accounting wise, that's actually what you're saying. How can then, you as your position, let's see something like that happen, you have the right to go and ask them, you bring me some kind of proof how you guys got to that approval or who was sitting in there. I mean, they just get that, deny that information to you or they can't.
Who can deny it? I didn't get it, good sister.
Let's say you have a board meeting.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they decide to do something.
Yes.
All of a sudden, everything is start changing in church.
Yes.
Right? And then you as a member
Mhm.
of the church,
Mhm.
I believe you have the right to go and ask and say, how did you guys get to that point? I mean, you never.
Okay, I get your point. That's the issue of governance. Look, now that you mentioned that, we'll take a moment just to explain it briefly, because it's a good point. Remember, the church is what we call a representative system. Your church board represents the church in certain functions. You get a point? That's what you're appointed for. A subcommittee, ad hoc committee, or standing committee appointed by the board is a small group of people to do a specific task. You empower these people to speak for you. The same thing happens in the government. You vote for your senator, you vote for your congressperson, you vote for who and who. They go down to Washington and they mess it up, but they mess it up because you told them to do it. I mean, they acted in your behalf, whether you like it or not. That's the way we are represented in the church the same way. So I think what I got from the sister's point is, if a church member comes and says, why did they change that door and spend all that money? The board approved it. Now, if the board is smart enough, listen to this, and you can set some parameters as leaders. If you're smart enough, if something goes beyond, let's say, $300 in cost, if you want to make sure you're on the right track, take it to the church. You can set those parameters. Any investment beyond $300 should have approval of the church in session. I'm just making this up, okay? Yeah. Well, again, you can set your rules. But if the board has the authority to act on behalf of the congregation, that should be explained to the church. Well, it was done because the board voted it. And the board is invested with the authority to run the church. Okay? But you can change the rules. Yes, over there.
Related to that, we have a number of churches where at a board meeting, the treasurer passes out the report, the clerk passes out the report, but the members, the board members are all expected to turn it in before they leave because that's classified information.
Yes, classified as, yeah, it's secret. Oh, well, in this day and age, secret in the church, God bless you. If you can find that. Well, anyway, yeah, there are documents where you don't want to have, there's no secret in it. There should be no secret in the church. Let's put it that way. But there are documents that you may not want to be of public domain. With Facebook and all that stuff today, people put it up, good intentions or bad intentions. So some boards, yes, Elder, some board will say, or some leaders will say, this is just for the eyes of the board. After you're through, please return it to treasurer. If somebody has a burden, an unbearable burden, to get a copy, speak to the treasurer at the end of the session. Sometimes we do that. Okay, what do you need it for? I need it to go home and study. Okay, just be sure it doesn't become a public domain. And not because it's dangerous, it's just you don't want to expose things too much to the prying eyes of people who may not have the best intention. It happens in an organization primarily with the payroll stuff. You do not pass out payroll information and personal to people. When I did it for 50 years, when we do the salary review, we do it every year. We do it in the church. We did it, at least under my tenure. Every year, an independent committee would review the salary structure of the organization. I am there, but I'm not a member of that committee because I'm affected by that salary review. That report with the name and persons and the amount of salary they earn and what have you and benefits is there for the committee to review and to approve or ask questions or disapprove, depending on policy, and that is picked up afterwards. That is not left in the hands of the members of the committee for reasons of privacy. So it goes both ways. But if it's a report that's not offensive, it's not going to cause any issue, you need to pass judgment on that and decide whether the members can keep it or not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I could construe not a lot, of circumstances where it might not be advisable or some places where it might be advisable. For example, somebody takes this home. There's a member of the family who is not a church member and is probably hostile to the church. He picks it up and says, you guys in the church, this is what you do? Look what you got in here. You got yourself in a pickle. So some cases that might be advisable to just review it, take it back. If somebody has a burden to receive a copy, it should not be denied if it's not classified information. When I say classified, I mean personal, private information, such as payroll. You get me? So those are things you need to decide what you want to do. But the church, having said all of that, there's no best way than to communicate constantly with your church. Okay? Make your church aware of everything that's happening in your system as much as you can. Okay, governing boards that give oversight and supporting roles can be a problem. Third-party funding, how should that be? Grants, somebody mentioned grants. The skills of your staff. We work with volunteers quite a bit, if not all of our cases. Volunteering is wonderful, but it has its pitfalls. One of them is, because you're a volunteer, if something happens and you can't show up at 5 when you should show up, you ain't going to go. I'm just a volunteer, You can't expect me to be there at 5 today when I have this emergency. So what you do, you don't go. And the church is waiting for you to come. Well, I couldn't tell you that I wasn't coming until 4:30. No, it's 5 o'clock. I can't be there. So you have to deal with those issues. You deal with people giving their time, okay? So you need to plan for that carefully. Let me get into this, which is the last part. Fund accounting is a self-balancing set of accounts. Self-balancing meaning each set of accounts has its own income and expense. Okay? Separate accounts are maintained for each fund. Let's take, for example, utilities. That's a fund that we all deal with. Utilities could be electricity, what else? Water, gas, telephone. I don't know, you can make up your own list. So you make a bunch of accounts into one fund. You put a bunch of accounts into one fund called utilities. So utilities, there's no income for utility. You have to take income from your overall in revenues and allocate to these different accounts X amount of dollars for the year. You follow me? So you balance it every month. Okay, my utilities is 5 accounts. My income budgeted is $500 a month for all these 4 lines. I'm spending $600. Let me see which one is spending more. You can see there. Telephone went up, gas went down, electricity went up. You follow me? And so forth. So you know each situation. That's a self-balancing fund within itself with a cluster of similar accounts. Promotional. I'm just making this up. Printing of brochures, radio spots, I don't know what else, announcements. Those are different bunches and clusters of accounts, self-balancing accounts. So, for reporting purposes, funds with similar characteristics are combined into fund groups. There it is. Okay, what's the objective? Accountability and stewardship. Were the funds used according to the plan? That report will tell you that story. You see? Did we document the funds were used properly? Write it down. How much can we do with what we have? What is the value of the buildings and other assets? What is financial impact of keeping replacement assets? Somebody mentioned depreciation. Okay. You have a computer in your office. You know it's not going to last forever. You need to plan to change it someday. So you can depreciate it over 5 years, 3 years. Okay, you're going to cost me $1,000 to replace that thing. If it takes 5 years, 5 years within $1,000 is $200 per year. You follow me? So you need to put aside $200 a year for the next 5 years. So when that thing goes down eventually, in 5 years, you have money to replace it with. And depreciation that's not funded is worthless. If you take the depreciation money for your computer and spend it, you have it on paper, but the cash is gone. Doesn't make any sense. Like my friend, you know, he has the money put away in his old system in a little bottle or a box at home. I don't know where he had it, an envelope. But he had the money. The point is, he had the money. Keep your depreciation funded in cash. Make sure you don't spend it because you will need it eventually. Evaluating organizational marginal performance. That helps you stay on track. Effectiveness, determining forecasting cash flow. How much money do I need monthly to pay off my bills? You know, an organization can be making money and still being cashless. Oh, your assets are good. You're making it. You're breaking even. You're even making a profit, but you have no money. Your cash is all in accounts receivable or assets. You don't have any cash. How are you going to operate? You need to determine how much you need monthly to run the business in cash. We call it a cash flow statement. And that is not difficult to achieve. Just sit down and list the things you need to do. Communication. Communicate with the church. The church is your mother organization. Okay? Don't wait till something terrible happens. Then you show up to the church and say, you know what? Oh, I need $1,000. Why do you need $1,000? Well, for the last 10 months, this leak has been taken. Why didn't you tell us in the beginning? You got to replace the whole section of the roof now. That could have been fixed. So these are things you need to keep in mind, okay? Oh, for example, be open and clear. My friend Bob was trying to teach the daughter Jenny how to say grace before meals. After a few weeks of coaching, Bob decided Jenny was ready to say grace. Look what Jenny said. Come on. Uh-oh. No, what happened here? I got back to, here, uh-oh, not good. Technology. Where do I get back to where I was? I don't think I can get back there. I have to do this. Lois, is that the way you do it? So Jenny goes and said, Dad, okay, I'll say grace now. And then she goes and she says, let me read it because I don't want to mess up here. She says, I want to say grace. Done it again. Done it again. Okay. So after coaching and teaching Jenny how to say grace, she's ready now to say it. Look what she says. You ought to be careful when you tell children, you know. They'll say things you don't expect them to say. Okay, so Jenny says, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Let me see if I can get to this one here. Okay. Thank you, God, for spaghetti. And then she lifted her head. So the father said, in what? You teach your kids to pray in the name of whom? Jesus. But Jenny didn't get the idea clearly. So she thanked God for spaghetti. So the father said, in what? And she says, in spaghetti sauce. In tomato sauce. Well, you know, the child, bless her heart, she didn't want to have just plain old spaghetti. But her dad was thinking of the spiritual aspect of prayer. She didn't understand it. So he said, in what? Well, in tomato sauce. So you need to communicate carefully your plan so whoever is working with you know what to do. Okay? Then this guy goes to the doctor and said, what I said to you to see both of you at 2:30, he's talking about he and his wife. He brings the dog. You see, he may have gotten it wrong. He said, I meant you and your wife, not the dog. So communications is important, you know. If you are saying something to the church and it's not getting across, ask them, brethren, did you understand what we're talking about? Do you understand it? If not, please ask questions. So when we leave the room, everybody's on the same page. Whether we like it or not, we know what it is all about. Is that okay? Okay, so let's go to the funds. Funds, current funds are funds to be used in a year's time. The word current means 1 year in accounting system, okay? Then we have what we call agency funds. Agency funds are funds given to you for a specific use or for other organizations. For example, maybe it may not happen to you, but it happens in our schools. The graduating class of an academy raises money over the year. You might know that for the class trip, you know, they'll do that, kids do that. So they raise money over the school year and they give the money to the treasury department of the school. At the end of the school year, when they want to do their field trip, they go to the treasurer and says, what? We need what? When it happens, most of the time, not most of sometimes, they go, the money is not there. How many money is not here? The president of student associations, we have turned in $1,000. Here are the receipts. Yeah, but we had to spend the money on buying oil for heating or I don't know what. What? That's an agency fund that you're not supposed to touch. You follow me? So if you have a fund like that in your system, make sure you do not spend it. Restricted funds are funds you receive for specific uses. If somebody gives you some money for a new refrigerator, but then the stoves goes out, what are you supposed to do? You got some money there, but it's not for the stove, for the refrigerator. What could you do? What should you do? Go back to the person and say, you know, elder, brother, thank you for giving the money to replace this refrigerator, but the refrigerator is doing fine so far, but we have a problem. The stove went out on us. We need a new range. Would it be okay, elder, that I could use at least part of the money, if not the money, to purchase a stove instead of a refrigerator? You know, most of the time people say, you know what? This is your need, go ahead and do it. So, but you must respect that. A restricted fund is restricted by the donor. You're not supposed to use it for anything else but the purpose it was given for. Is that clear? That's just sheer honesty. Okay? Endowment funds are funds given to an organization with typical stipulated points. For example, endowment is, they have the semi-endowment, the quasi-endowment, or the pure endowment. Money, I'd say, I want to give you $10,000, sister, for the center. You put it in the bank, and the interest from that $10,000 in perpetuity can be used for the operation, but you can't touch the corpus. The corpus is the $10,000. You follow me? So that's a pure endowment. You receive the money with the commitment to keep it in perpetuity to benefit the charity, just the interest of it, not the corpus. You see? So, or this person may say, listen, I give it to you, and for the next 5 years, you should not touch the corpus. You can use the interest of it. Beyond the 5th year, for the next 5 years, you can use $2,000 a year for the $10,000. I'm using $10,000. So in the next 5 years, you can take out $2,000 every year from the corpus until the fund is exhausted. You get the point? So it's a semi-quasi endowment. Those conditions are set forth by the donor in writing. It should be written up in your minutes. Why? People change. Leadership changes. If somebody comes tomorrow and wants to lay hands on it, I'm going to say, you can't touch that. Why? Here's the minutes. This is the commitment, okay? We cannot use it. So you have protection. Plant fund is what you own. People overlook this all the time. This old lady sits, her husband passed away. She lives in the old house on the farm, and she says, I am broke, I have no money. But her farm is worth $1 million. She is sitting on a gold mine, and she doesn't realize that. You have stuff in your office, in your centers that are valuable. You need to make a list of all your assets and put a realistic value to it. That's your asset list. Is that okay? Starts with your computer, your stove, your refrigerator, your desk, your everything. Anything that's hardware is an asset, fixed assets. Okay? Unexpected plant funds for acquisition, construction, improvement of physical properties. Those are the funds you use. Net invested in plant fund, funds you already invested. Oh, we painted a roof, the ceiling. We put on a new roof. We put on whatever. We set up this wall. We bought this. That's our improvement. That needs to be recorded. That's investment in your system, okay? So, quick examples. This is what I did back in AWR. 2000, I can use different dates. 2012, let's say 2015, 16, and 17. Okay? Give you a little bit of history. What was the proposed budget for 2015? What was the actual income and the expense for 16? So how much do I project for 17? Because the best way to project your future income is to look at your past. Now there are bumps on the road that you need to be careful with. If during the year 2016 you receive a special gift of $4,000, $3,000, $1,000 for brother so-and-so, unless this person is going to do it this year again, don't plan on that gift for this year. You get the point? So take out that bump. Okay? Or there was a huge investment in the center because the ceiling fell and you had to replace it. Well, you're not going to replace the ceiling this year again, so you take out that expense bump. You follow me? So you've got to work your way through this. You've got to do it, okay? All right. So here's an example. Well, the first one was the income side. Okay. Income, headquarters income. Okay, how much money I'm going to get from appropriation from the church? How much interest and loan are coming to you? How much your investment income if you have any? How much your miscellaneous income? So you list all your sources of income. Yes, question.
All right, what if something big changes? Let's just say membership drops off, or people become unemployed. If we're using what we got last year, and then, you know, this year is a little on the rough side, then how do you accommodate for that?
Check the ship. Change direction. Either way, increase revenues and decrease income and expense, or both. Or both, I should say. So it all depends where you want to go and what you're experiencing. That's why it needs to be flexible. Good point. So this is a list of proposed income. You can list your own. You see? I'm going to get to that before we close. Then this is a list of proposed expense. In my case, you can do your own. We had the region administration. I told you about the region, the salaries for that region. The travel for that region, equipment, meeting expense, miscellaneous, promotion expense, telecommunication, total for that region, Europe region. I know by just looking at this thing, this page, what it's going to cost us to run the Europe office or any region in the world. That's the quick look at fund accounting. So, let's look quickly at some ratios. A ratio is a relationship between two items selected from the income statement or the balance sheet of your system. I can't get into all of it, but some of it would help you. Ratio analysis helps to evaluate the weak and the strong points. For example, well, not to be regarded as absolute indicators, but a ratio only means one means of assessing performance. Ratio should be point of departure and not the end in of themselves. For example, a current ratio. How do you know you have money to cover your debts? You list your current assets. You remember what that was? All that you own. And you divide that by your current debt. How much do you owe? That result will give you your liquidity. If you have $1,000 in equipment and you owe $500 in debt, are you in good shape or in bad shape? Why? You owe less than what you have. To the contrary, if you have $1,000 in assets and you owe $1,500 and you have debt for that, are you in good shape or bad shape? You're in bad shape. You owe more than what you really have. That's a quick ratio. That needs to open your eyes to the reality. Okay? Current liabilities are those to be paid in 1 year. How much do you owe? I owe this. But is it a long term? Is it a mortgage? Or is it a payment on a refrigerator? That's a short-term liability. You owe that for 1 year. That's a current liability, 1 year's time. Okay. Some quick examples. You have it in the system there. Current assets, what do you own? Current liabilities, what do you owe? Example, $3,600, $4,000. You only have 90% of what you should have. You're not in good shape. You're not in bad shape, but you're not in good shape either. Okay? All right? So then this one here, a quick ratio, they call it an asset test, dividing quick assets by current liabilities. Test the institutional ability to meet current obligations. Does not include inventory. Some people carry inventories. You know, you have stuff in you're going to use over time. That's a quick asset. If you want to be complete and comprehensive, you need to put in inventory. How much food do you have stored? What's the cost of that food? You take a store. When you do inventory for a store, if you ever was as a merchant out there, at the end of the year, you must do a physical what? Inventory. My father owned stores all his life. My father was from China, and he came to America to make money. Be careful. Every Chinese you see out there is here to make money. And they have a lot of company, by the way. Other people are here to make money. So we had to count even every penny, every needle, every pin. I hated that time. But we had to count it and document it. Why? At the end of the year, he needed to know, my father, how much merchandise we had in the store. You follow me? Same with you. You got to do your own inventory. Okay? So, assets. You have $1,200 in assets. You owe $4,000. You're in poor shape. You only have 30% of what you need to have. You get it? All right. All right, then look at this one now. Total debt to net ratio. Test institution's ability to meet its total obligations from equity. What is equity? Money you have accumulated on your assets. You bought a house for 100,000, or it's 100,000. You have equity or not? You have some money. Okay, there it is. Total debt, what do you owe? Make a list, put a total. How much do you have? What do you own? I owe 6,000, but I have 12,000 in assets. Are you in good shape or bad shape? You have 200 for one. That's a tremendous ratio. So you're in good shape, okay? All right. Let's go through this quick because I see Sung is looking at his watch and he's a terrible master, you know. He's not listening to me, by the way. Working capital is a very important one here. WC. A test of the institution's long-term ability to function as a going concern. Remember the term going concern? Okay, how do you do that? Your current assets, make a list of all that you own. Less your payables that you owe in 1 year's time, whatever you need to pay in 1 year. That makes up what your working capital should be. What you have minus what you owe for 1 year. That tells you what your working capital should be. You get a point? So it varies. Required working capital. In the church, we use 20 or 25%. I may be wrong. I haven't looked at it, the policy for a long while. I think it's 20 or 25%. The church says, after a lot of study, you need 20% of last year's expenditure. So if you spent $1,000 last year, you need 20% of that is what? $200. Your working capital should be at least $200. 20% of your last year's expenditure. You get a point? That's the empirical way of doing business, but it's fairly good because they have done it over years and it seems to work all right. 25 or 20%. So typically, here you go, the goal is 100%, the higher better to a certain degree. Okay, you can have good working capital and still be cashless, I told you that before. So you want to be careful how you run your cash. Okay, here's an example. Your current assets is 12,000. You owe 6,000. Your working capital should be what? That's it. Right there. So you should get that. Okay, 25%. Previous year's expense was 24,000. So it's allocated funds, the funds that we have in agency funds that are allocated or restricted, we put those in. So I have a grand total of $32,000 from last year that I really can count on. 25% of that I spent, I'm sorry. 25% of that grand total is $8,000. You get my point? My working capital should be $8,000. In my case, in that case. Okay, there you go. $8,000 in my working capital. But I'm required $7,500. So my working capital is 1.066 or 106.6% of what I need to have. So I have a little more than I'm required to have. You get a point? To the contrary, if my working capital is 3,000, I have 7,500 of required capital, I'm below. I'm way below what I'm required to have. So these are ratios that you can do in your own way to see how the business is going. This may sound complicated, but it's not. Just take it one step at a time. You know? Okay, summary of thoughts. Let me come to some last moment questions. Wise leaders know they can't do everything themselves. Do you know that? Who is indispensable in this room? Nobody is. Oh, they can't do this without me. Get on. Get to life, okay? You'll be surprised how quickly you're replaced. Unforgotten. And that's fine. Okay? Here lies a man who knew how to put into his service more able men than he himself was. Dale Carnegie. Build on your strengths and find strong people to do the other necessary tasks. Okay? So, mission-driven, concentrate on the mission, stick with it. Have few priorities. Not a list like 100, no. No more than 2. or 3, but develop them fully. It's better to shoot for the skies and hit the treetops than shoot for the treetops and hit the ground. So have few good, strong goals. Stick with them and do them fully. But don't have a dozen and you don't hit anything. You're frustrated. Know when to stop. Don't tell me what you're doing, Rick. This is Preacher Drucker. Tell me what you've stopped doing. And I can tell you where you're heading. Basically, that's what he's saying. So, in a nutshell, this is what I wanted to share with you, with so many other things we could share about. But let me finish, and then you have some thoughts that you want to share with me if you have any questions. I want to share something with you that I thought was important. I got it from Spirit of Prophecy, because it's something that some people struggle with. Some people complain that church is not helpful, is not cooperative, is not mission driven, they don't help me. I hear this sometimes from people like yourself. I feel like the church is not supporting the community center like they should. And you know, they approached Sister White with this topic. And it was interesting to read, again, it's in the book, Welfare Ministry. And the testimonies, of course. You know, it's interesting. Sister White says, in serving the community, this is paraphrasing what I read. I have it here. In serving the community, don't expect to use for all the expenses you have, the resources from the church. What? What do you mean, Sister White? The church? Yeah. Man, she goes on to say, I cannot see, the Lord does not lay, let's start over. The Lord does not lay upon his people all the burden of laboring for a class so hardened by sin that many of them will neither be benefited themselves nor benefit others. This is harsh, this is hard talk. But it's reality. If there are men who can take up the work for the most degraded, God lays upon them a burden to labor for the masses in various ways. Let these go forth, and listen to this, and gather from the world the means required for doing this work. Let them, the world, or the people, excuse me, not depend on the means which God intends shall sustain the work of the third angel's message. In other words, do not divert the needed funds to continue the mission of the church in preaching the gospel, to tend for all the needs of the needy. Go somewhere else. Then I come to the final point. She says, I cannot see how anyone can take exceptions to the receiving of gifts from those not of our faith. Have you ever done an in-gathering? Any of you remember that word? If you do, you're kind of old, because that's not in vogue anymore, hardly. Right? I've done in-gathering in many cultures and places and years. And some would say, would you, they asked me that question, I was a pastor. If I won the lottery, I said, you shouldn't be buying the lottery in the first place. But if I won the lottery, pastor, would you receive the tithe of my gain? I said, of course, plus an offering. Well, that's what the Bible says. It's not me saying that. All right, sister, I like it. He said, but that is dirty money. I said, come on now. The money is dirty until you have it in your pocket. I said to this person, how do you think God built a sanctuary in the desert with slaves? No money. Slaves. You know how he did it? You remember the fleecing of the Egyptians? You know what that is? That's what the word Sister White uses. Go, the night before the Exodus, go to the women of Egypt. The instructions is there in the Bible. And what? Tell them to give you of their gold and their silver. Remember that? And when they got to the desert, Moses said, bring the gold. Where did they get it from? From the heathens. And with that, the sanctuary was built. Even the Shekinah, God forbid, the beautiful Shekinah, the riches of the Egyptian came to rescue the cause of God. Now listen, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. You do what you feel comfortable doing. But let me tell you this. Those monies are God's money.
Yes.
Don't be ashamed to approach anybody and ask to support God's cause. It's a privilege that you're giving to them. It's an opportunity to share. They need to understand that. You don't want to be haughty. You don't want to be cocky. You don't want to be demanding. No. Mr. So-and-so, you own this hardware store. Yes, sir. I represent the Adventist Community Center in this town. We serve, and it's good to have a brochure with you. Something to show. Look, we serve this community day in and day out. This is what we do. This is what we like to do. We don't have the resources. I'm here to ask you to partner with us with whatever God puts on your heart to help this ministry in your own community. Some will say no. Any of you have Canvas as a colporteur?
Yeah.
You have? How many books do you sell on a block? How many doors do you knock? Not every door opens to you. Some will shut it back on your in your nose. I've got a Canvas. But you know what? When you knock on 10 doors, at least 2 may open. Well, there's a 2 you want to work with. You may have to visit more than one business in your businesses in your community. Some will say, "No, like I don't give to you." I said, "That's fine, sir. I was just giving you an opportunity to share the bounties God has given you." You understand that? It's your choice. If you don't want to give, that's fine, sir. Thank you so much. But you know, you'd be surprised that the Lord is going to touch the hearts of people today. Know how to canvas, make a case, build your case, pray about it. Before you knock on the door, send the Holy Spirit before you. Amen. So when you get there, the place is soft.
Okay, so, all right, if...
You don't want to give anything?
Huh?
You don't want to give any money?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No. So, okay, let's just say there's a known drug dealer, and he gives money. What he does, he deals drugs.
Mm-hmm.
The church should accept money drug dealers.
Would you accept the money from a drug dealer? That's the question he's asking. I need the people to respond. Yes. Why do you say yes?
You said the money is there.
No, don't quote me now. Don't quote me. I want to hear you. Why did you say yes? Yes, sis. Come on.
I think it's an interesting opportunity for that drug dealer to have, number one, approached you, and number two, for you to inform him what it is you're going to be doing with the money, the possibility of where that money will reach.
So would there be any legal issues?
All right. This guy's getting...
That's my point.
I'm not going to answer him a question. Over there, brother. Wait, tell us.
We need to be careful about that. If you know somebody is a drug dealer, well known, and that person wants to donate to the church, it's now you have to think about the ethical issue with you partnering with somebody who has a reputation. Because what does drug do? They take the right fix. It's the families that are being broken in the community. So if we are condoning this kind of behavior by saying it's money, then we have bigger issues than trying to help the community. Because we can't be perceived as being affected by rallies in our community. So if it's known, if it's a known drug dealer, there is no way of them to get money from drug dealers in the program.
You see, we have an interesting church here. Let me read this one before time runs out. And then I want to leave these burning questions in your mind because they're very valid. Look, you inquire, this is Sister White, you inquire with respect to the property, the propriety, I should say, of receiving gifts from Gentiles. Now, he uses the name Gentiles, or the heathen. Now, when the word heathen amongst Christians is the worst thing you want to be, is a heathen. The question, she says, is not strange. But I would ask you, she says, who is that owns our world? Who are the real owner of houses and lands? She uses those two pieces. Is it not God? He has an abundance in our world which he has placed in the hands of men, by which the hungry might be supplied with food, the naked with clothing, the homeless with homes. The Lord would move upon worldly men, worldly, that's a bad word, but worldly men, even idolaters. Now back in those days, probably there were no drug users or what have you, but he said idolaters, to give of their abundance for the support of the work. If we would approach them wisely and give them an opportunity of doing those things which is in their privilege to do, what they would give, we should be privileged to receive. Amen. No. Having said all of that, I'm not going to answer all your questions because you're getting in some legal issues here. I don't want to get into that. Just go on your knees and pray. Lord, what you want me to do? You think God exists? Does he respond? Yes. Does he hear? Yes. But go to him. Amen. God, this is your cause. I have this offer. What do you want me to do, Lord? It's dirty money. You know what I'm saying? How many kinds of dirty money you have out there? Have you seen a dollar bill that you don't even know is a dollar bill? In Africa, I used to buy alcohol by the quart. Bottles of alcohol. You know for what? To wipe off the bills, but I couldn't tell if they were $5 or $10 or $20. They're so murky and yucky. You can't even tell if it's a $1 bill. I had to wipe it off. Those are dirty bills. Dirty in the physical sense. But I don't know how much dirty money is out there. Well, all I'm looking at is maybe it's an opportunity to say to the gentleman who offers you the money, look, sir, look. I know who you are. We all know who you are. We respect you. Speak with respect. You know, this is a church organization. What compels you to give to this charity? What is your motive? What do you expect from the church? You need to understand that we as a church, we are not into politics. We're not into law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? Let him think. And if after you talk to him in that way and say, you know what, I better not give it to you. Well, that's fine, sir. Thank you for the offer anyway. But if he says, you know, that's true, sir, you're right. But I just want to give this money to help somebody. What are you going to do? Don't answer me. Pray about it. I'll finish here now. I'm finished. But I mean, listen, these are real issues. We live in a time and age when these things are relevant. But you have the same God sitting on the throne. When the fleecing of Egypt took place that night, only God knows from what brothel or anywhere in the world things may come from. And yet, Sister White says, who does that money belong to? I could tell you more stories, but the time is up. What time do we have, Sung? 12:45? So we have like 15, 20 minutes to any further questions or comments you may want to share with us. Please raise your hands and speak up. Yes, sister.
I just have a comment.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of the young man there, I mean, you may know where that money is who knows where the money is coming from these businesses? Because it could be embezzled. There is embezzlement going on, and that is definitely classified as dirty money.
Oh, mercy. Well, you know, there's so many ramifications. You know, again, you know, I don't want to nitty-gritty pick this whole thing, but the church, in our investment policy of the General Conference, we have what we call, what's the word I'm using? I'm trying to forget it. Huh? Responsible investment, but have a word. I forgot. Huh? Anyways, clean investment. We don't want monies of the church invested in weapon production, drug production, what have you, industry, tobacco, liquor. You know what I'm saying? The investment companies like Schwab and all them big places, you know those names? They say to you, clean, I guess a clean investment, I'm not sure. Well, you know, to a certain degree, we can give you investment that are clean, quote unquote. But there's no clean investment out there. When you put your money in the bank, if you have a checking account or a savings account, do you know where the bank invests your money? In fact, do you know what they do with your money while they're in the possession of it? So we are in a very imperfect world. God knows that. But He has given the opportunity for people with resources. How they got it, don't ask me. But it still belongs to God. But He allowed it that they would have it in their, you know, in their portfolio. If they can give it back to help somebody, Sister White says, don't neglect taking it. Legal issues, you may want to check with your attorney if you want to. But your best attorney is one up there. He knows the business. I'm being just simplistic, but it's truthful. God is your best counselor. Okay, sister.
I was saying, even in speaking to the drug dealer, even if you don't accept the money, this might be an opportunity for us
To witness to him.
to witness to
Yeah.
him. The mere idea that he has recognized he's coming to the church, maybe he wants to come and doesn't know how. And at least it will be an opportunity to interact with him in a positive way.
But even, you know, we talk about dirty money here, but there are other kinds of money. Egotistical money, pride money. One person came to me, I was in a different country, said he wanted to give the church this piece of land. Okay, this is not the only case I had, but this one person wanted to give this piece of land. So I said, let's go take a look at it. Was a hill going down like that. Not even goats could get up there. And he was demanding that we put on that piece of land some kind of a hospital. Of some, you know, he wanted to give it to the church to build a hospital. I said to sir, thank you, but no thank you. We can't take it. This lady comes to us and says, I want to give this piece of land. Okay, ma'am, where's the land? Up there, so and so. We checked it out. It's polluted with a lot of dump stuff that EPA would get to your case and it would cost you millions of dollars to clean up. So I said to her, ma'am, I would rather you sell the land and give us the money. No, I want to give you the land. She knew that place was a dump before. I learned about it. I said, ma'am, thank you so much, but I can't receive your land. You see what I'm saying? So it could be dirty land or it could be dirty money. Pride, I don't know what you want to call it. So you have to be serious and careful how you deal with all of this. But the counsel is clear. That land, that dirty land belongs to the Lord. But you need to clean it up, madam. Don't give it to me dirty. Clean it. I mean, you in your case of the money, you want to give the money if there's no strings attached. Yeah, you know, you need to talk to the Lord about that, brother. But I just need to tell you that Sister White gave counsel on that, generally speaking. You need to just ask the Lord what you should do. All right? Another question. Observation. You're getting hungry, I can say that. Yes, brother.
Okay, you were talking about assets, right?
Mm.
And you need to, that hardware, you know, furniture and all that stuff qualifies as assets, correct?
Current assets, yeah.
Okay.
Fixed assets.
Mhm.
Fixed assets.
So what role does that play when things, I don't know, when things are not that great? I mean, are you saying that these things should be sold to make up the difference? or-
That depends. Some could be sold. You can monetize. When I say monetize, convert a piece of asset into money. If there's something in your inventory that you're not using, and you're lacking money, you can sell it. Go to your board and say, you know what? We have this furniture that we're not using, and we could get $300 for it. I'm just making this up. We could use that money for this emergency. Your board can vote that. But you don't want to sell your computer, then you're out there doing everything by hand. So you need to use your common sense there, you know what I'm saying? But assets is for you to use to fund your system or to operate your system. You could sell. Remember, you can only sell an asset once, not twice. So be careful what you sell. Because once you sell it, it's not yours anymore. And you put that money in the deep, big old black hole, it's gone forever. Okay, so when you sell something, make sure you sell it the right way. Okay, other questions? I think we are ready for lunch. I want to say thank you for such an interactive and dynamic group. God bless you as you continue your work. Amen?